Let me just say something about Matt as he comes to preach this morning. He took some time. When was that? Last summer when he started helping out with the youth? Or Matt just volunteered when we needed some help last summer with the youth, and really did a great job. And with all the challenges of COVID and everything, I got to witness some of the way he connects with people, and just the kind of Matt's a really good Bible teacher. When I was up there listening, really was benefiting myself as I was up there. And more than that, the thing I want to say about Matt is that, in James, James says to be doers of the word and not hearers only. And me and Miles took some time, and we've known Matt. He was in the youth group when Miles and I were working up there. But we took some specific time to teach Matt about discipleship and working with people. And then you know what happened? He went to school and he did it. To be a doer of the word. Jesus said, come to me, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. It's a process when you're following Jesus that God does the work on you. You don't have to be ready. You just go and do it and faithfully follow him. And so when I think of Matt, I think of somebody who's doing that. And I just want to pray for him before he preaches this morning, and look forward to the challenge he's going to give us today. So y'all bow and pray with me. Lord, I thank you for my brother, and just what a blessing he's been in my life. And Lord, as he comes to share from your word this morning, I pray that the Holy Spirit breathe on us, that we too be doers of the word and not hearers only, that we go and we make disciples of all nations. And Lord, I pray that as Matt teaches, his spirit connects with ours as he opens your word and shares with us what you've laid on his heart. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Well, there's this verse, Mark chapter 8, verse 34, that if you could open up to, if you have your Bibles, I'll read it for us. And this verse has been like my motivator of when I evangelize, and it's kind of like my, like me and my discipleship groups, like main verse that we kind of live by together. And it says, and Jesus says to his disciples in Mark chapter 8, verse 34, he summoned the crowd and his disciples and said to them, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." And not just going into like what that verse means, like deny himself means to forget oneself, lose sight of oneself and one's own interests. And what Jesus is calling us there is to put him first and to follow him diligently. And God, to me, and from reading this verse, I understand that God calls all of us to deny our fears we have with sharing the gospel. And because it's hard to share the gospel, it's like, to me, I fear God mostly because this is the only hope we have, and you don't want to get it wrong. And so I think of like, Paul tells us in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, to present yourself approved to God as a workman who does not need to be ashamed, accurately handling the word of truth. And so I think even Paul here is telling us to deny our fears with sharing the gospel, even in 2020 with COVID. And, I know there's a lot of fears with this, not only social fears, but health fears and, any kind of thing in our way that stops us from sharing this hope. And our anxieties, fears, and worries really are no excuse to not share this only hope we have to others. And we're not all called to do cold case evangelism, which is like what I primarily do when I evangelize. Is I just like ask questions and meet strangers and spark a conversation. But I do believe that God calls all of us to make disciples of all nations, like he tells in Matthew chapter 28, verse 17 through 19. So every follower of Jesus Christ should be prepared at any time for God to open an opportunity to share the gospel to friends, families, and neighbors and strangers. With God's perspective, you are constantly looking for those opportunities. And so some ways that I'm hoping that to share with y'all today is how I evangelize is when I go to parks and I start conversations with strangers, I don't force the gospel out. I have a sheet that someone printed out that explains the gospel and how I share it, but I don't force it down their throat. I don't fire and brimstone, which may work sometimes. I'm not saying that's bad, but I usually ask questions first, because that is what Jesus does to people, is he asks questions, and I get to know them. And some things I ask are do you know what the gospel is in the Bible? Have you ever read the Bible? What is your experience with Christianity? What do you think about God? Do you think he wants to know you personally? And the more people I've done this with, I will say, I've gotten the craziest answers. People my own age in college have never even heard the Bible at all, and you'd think that's crazy. The most popular book ever invented would not even be known by a guy my age. But there are people out there that have never heard the Bible. Some have told me that they don't believe. They believe they're a Christian, but they don't know what the gospel is. There's a whole lot of answers you'll get from that. And I think I just like to share that because it's surprising to me is to realize how much evangelism is needed today, and how people really will say they're a Christian, but they really don't know what Christianity is, or how powerful the gospel is in their life, or if it's really done anything to them. And I've gotten some people to tell me, no, they are a Christian, they are a gospel, and that's when I open up about discipleship and joining a discipleship group. And I've had some people that have realized I'm opening an opportunity for them to be in part of the discipleship group, and they have showed interest in that, even during COVID, even during all of this pandemic. And I think it's just nice to see that people are still wanting this social connection, and they understand the importance of that. But church, to me, I really think church members of every church must be on the same page of seeing God's perspective of evangelism. As Paul says, in Romans 12, verse 10 to 11, for us to stay diligent together and not having anyone lag behind, and being together on the same page. We should all be diligent in serving God through evangelism and disciple making together as a church, because we know and cherish already in these halls the good news of Jesus Christ every Sunday. We should want the sermons we hear every Sunday to convict us and push us to respond in obedience towards God. And we do that most successfully with group perspectives of looking for opportunities all around our lives to share the gospel and make disciples, which you learn about in the discipleship groups that during Sunday school and around your Christian peers that help you and walk with you through this. To me, churches are like outposts during war. They have the supplies that we need to be prepared for battle, but we do not stay in the outpost forever. We have to come outside and fight. And even during 2020, I really think that there's a lot of excuses to make, but Christians are called to make this evidence of Christ's transformation in their life, so that everyone you meet understands that you are a Christian, and that your faith in God isn't just a badge you shine to look good on Sunday or Wednesday, but it's your whole purpose in your whole life. And I understand that, there are the yeah buts of evangelism. Like I said earlier, COVID and going outside is dangerous. And I completely understand that. And my advice is to wear a mask, to be 6 feet apart, to be cautious not to cough or sneeze, and don't be too loud. But, and I don't wear a mask, but I've done all the 6-part, and everyone I've met, I'll be honest, no one has told me you're being dangerous or reckless. I've been told by one guy that he thought I was really brave to be outside and sharing the gospel. And it motivated him, I guess, to listen to me, because he's like, man, this guy's serious. He's not kidding around when I was out there in this park. And I do want to mention, too, that a lot of people I've shared the gospel with have rejected it, and they seem interested in it, but they don't want to follow up. I say this to remind us that, we're planting a seed or we're watering a seed in someone. It's going to be different every time, but it's important to remember that what you're sharing, when you share the gospel fully to someone, it is the most important thing they will ever hear in their life. So you really should be ready to present it biblically and truthfully. And that's why I provided that discipleship acronym is from the other ministry, because it's really helpful at doing that. So with discipleship too, is that's very important to me, and I believe it is the core of the church, and it is what we see in Acts 2 and what we see in Jesus' own ministry of his discipleship. And I asked my partners, Will and Jason, for their feedback on the group that we started together like a couple months ago. And Will told me, quote, "It helped me grow because it's a place where I come every week and confess sin and be convicted. It has shown me the importance of following up with discipleship and evangelizing." And I mention this because it was nice to see that this new Christian, Will, he's only been a Christian for about a year, but he started to understand, being around me and Jason, my friend, that this evangelism that we're talking about is something that he's also called to do. And with the discipleship group, we were able to convict each other of doing this and being the light of the world to our friends and to our family. And I think one of the greatest things is the reminder that we're not alone. We're not doing this alone on some island, that we're together and we're picking up our cross together. And really, that to me, it's like our own church. That is the church. It's just together we're walking and we're being obedient to God. And it works fine, and it thrusts us into obedience towards God. But with that discipleship group, originally I asked Will and Jason to meet with me for the sole purpose of truly growing together in Christ and applying what we are called to do. And they both denied an hour of their time to meet with me and be a part of this group. The accountability in our group was not just focused on habits and daily struggles in our life, but it also focused on the interpretation of Scripture and the accountability of making sure we understand what God is teaching to us through the Bible and exactly how we can apply it in each of our lives, individually and together. And I asked Jason how his life and perspectives have changed since this discipleship group, and he told me, quote, "Listening to you and Will talk about y'all's passion for discipleship and desire to share the gospel with others has also challenged me to keep more of an open eye in my own life for opportunities to share the gospel with others." And I just think it's great to see that, because it's just this reminder that we're looking for God's perspective, not our own. And you need to see that first, especially when you evangelize, because you can't go out there and think, well, I'm doing this so I look cool, so I have some nice image to share, so they can think about me or my perspective. But it needs to be all about God and giving glory to God. And because I think there is some sharpening when you're out there, that you realize that God wants you to fear him far more than you fear other people and their opinions on us. And because God's word is perfect, and we have to get it right, and we have to present it correctly. So I love discipleship groups, because it's like that exactly is what is a way of sharpening us, is helping us grow together. Discipleship groups to me are the church, and I do not believe we need a building to grow. We don't need the music to grow. We don't need the perfect sermon to grow. We need Christ, and Christ calls us to grow with him by sticking with our brothers and sisters in Christ. Jesus never told his followers to go and isolate themselves from others and run the race alone. The burden of evangelism, teaching, rebuking, and serving can not only be on the pastor's shoulders of the church, but Jesus calls all of us as members to embark on this adventure together. And I love what R.C. Sproul says in one of his books, Growing in Holiness. He says, quote, "We need prayers and accountability and fellowship of other believers. We need other Christians, just as other Christians need us." And I just love that, because it's so true, especially with any kind of conviction that we have in our own lives. Sometimes we can't even see that, thinking about it ourselves, and we really need someone else in our life to point out that log in our eye, or that sin that we're dealing with, and help us to grow together and understand, not in shame, but in humility and humbleness, that we are all broken together. The greatest example of seeing Christ's love in action is by listening and watching other Christians around us and doing that together. So, kind of concluding this and wrapping it is, again, Mark chapter 8, verse 34 tells us that we need to desire our desires and goals before God and make him more necessary than anything else. This verse tells us to pick up our cross, which means to embrace the risk of rejection from the whole world and to follow Jesus Christ with all your life. All members should deny themselves, pick up their cross, and follow Jesus together as a body of Christ through evangelism and discipleship. And the gospel acronym that is on the thing, I really hope that you read that and look over it. It's helped me every time to biblically share the gospel, and it frames it perfectly, and it makes sense to everyone I've read it to has understood it and asked a lot of questions about it afterwards, and it's just a really good frame and making sure you don't fall out of saying something unbiblical or something on accident. That's all I had to say today. But thank you.
Give Matt a round of applause. All right, I won't let you be done that easy, Matt. Here, take a seat right here. I'm going to ask you a few questions. So why don't you share, kind of the process of, what you do to practice this as a habit, and maybe one of the best stories that you've had from doing this?
So, one of the reasons I definitely, I make sure before I evangelize to prepare myself, because I think of what Paul says in 2 Timothy, to present yourself approved as a workman who does not need to be ashamed and accurately handling the word of truth. And to do that, to me, is, for me, I spend, before I go out and evangelize, I spend 30 minutes to an hour praying and going over the gospel and making sure I understand every part of it, and understand that, this is so important for someone else to understand and wrap their head around, that I need to see this and make sure I get it myself, and that I'm not going to be like a hypocrite out there telling someone that they need this, but I don't even live it out, And it to me, it was one of the motivators for doing it was that when I started the discipleship group, I told them, I really want to figure out evangelism. And I realized, well, I need to do evangelism, figure out evangelism, and you have to do it, but anyway, it definitely takes a lot of praying and truly reading the word and understanding what God is telling us through it.
So one of the things that I've kind of experienced in just in my Christian walk and in ministry is that as you seek to obey God and do what he's called you to do, you think about other people changing as they're given the gospel, right? But one of the things I've noticed is that you're the one who changes more than anybody, just participating with God. So how has God kind of used, participating in discipleship and evangelizing to change you?
I'll say definitely, I would say a couple months ago, or I don't know how long it is since I started evangelizing, I never would have thought of doing it. I would have been really scared. And one of the ways it's definitely changed me is that everywhere I go, I do feel prepared to share the gospel to anyone around me. And I think one of the main things that's changed me is how I've realized, once I understood how serious and God really convicted me to believe in this and understand this, is that other people around me will see that. And when I talk to them, and I share the gospel, and that really has given me the confidence to do it, is looking them in the eye and being like, hey, this is what I believe in. This isn't a gimmick. One guy thought I was doing a sales pitch to him when I started sharing, and I was like, No, this is what I believe in. This is not like a business opportunity, and I really think you only get to that point when you are truly convicted and truly believe in this.
Keith Green said, and this is just one thing that I see in Matt, is that the most effective way of sharing the gospel is that when you're talking to someone and they look in your eyes and they can see that you really believe what you're telling them, what you're sharing with them. By far, that is the most effective way to share the gospel. And I see that in Matt, and really excited to see what God's doing, going to do in your life and is doing. So thanks for preaching today, Matt. I'll give him another round of applause. All right. As I said earlier, we're going to have, I've asked a few of you maybe to share something. But if there's anybody who wants to share anything about lessons this year, maybe the way that you've seen God work in this unusual time, now's the time to come and share. You know, they say in silence leaders are born, right? So, oh, there we go.
Good morning. Thank you. So, I'm not real eloquent, so I decided to write a couple of things down. Tyler asked me if I'd mind sharing a testimony today, and usually at this time of year, we naturally reflect back on the year and take stock of where we've been, what we've done, and who we've encountered, where we've gone, and the impact on our lives. Well, it definitely looks different this year. 2020 does have an answer for each of those areas of reflection. Initially, it seems we've gone nowhere, saw no one, done nothing but buy toilet paper. But there is much more that 2020 has brought us. One thing that became clear to me this year is that God is always at work around us. Now, I didn't come to that realization on my own, and it took some time for me to realize it. But once we had been into the COVID pandemic for a couple of months and had been conducting Sunday services online for a while, I got a call from Tyler to discuss options for Sunday school. We knew we couldn't go back to meeting the way we had been, but needed to find an alternative that would allow for meeting face-to-face. Tyler asked if I'd be willing to lead an adult Sunday school class for all adult groups for a few months. Now, I hadn't considered that, nor did I feel adequate to do such a thing. So what do you say when your pastor poses something like this? Let me pray about it, and I'll let you know. A couple of weeks went by, and this was still nagging at me, but I didn't want to do it. One Sunday morning, I saw in the bulletin that we would begin an adult Sunday school class the following week, and then Tyler mentioned it in the announcements by saying, we haven't found someone to lead it yet, so it may be one of the pastors. Well, there was that nagging again. The next day, Tyler called me to ask if I had considered Sunday school anymore. I told him I had. I didn't really feel like the guy to do it, but God kept laying it on my heart. And so I accepted and said I'd come by the church office to get materials and visit about it. So as I was on my way to the church, I'm texting Tyler saying, hey, I'm on my way. As I pull into the parking lot, I get another text that says, hey, changing plans. We don't like the materials for this summer. We talked about using Experiencing God as our study. Okay, well, now I was nervous. This was something that was completely out of my comfort zone. But I felt God nudging me towards it, and I agreed, so we were moving forward. Well, through experiencing God, we learned God is always at work around us. We just need to be watching to recognize what He's doing. God invites us to become involved with Him in His work. You must make major adjustments in your life to join God in what He's doing. And you come to know God by experience as you obey Him and He accomplishes His work through you. Well, experiencing God helped me personally to spend more time daily fostering the relationship that God was already seeking with me. By studying His Word and praying daily, I grew to know God in a much more personal way. I began to recognize God speaking through a combination of those coincidences that seemed to happen, scriptures I'd come across, people I encountered, and the silent times during prayer. As our experiencing God study continued, I recognized through our group discussions and times of sharing that others were feeling that same sense of drawing nearer to God by learning to recognize where He was already working. As we continued this path as a church, we become more unified around how God is using us to accomplish His work. So yes, 2020 looked very different in many ways. Had we not experienced the impact of this global pandemic, would we still be doing things as we always had been? Perhaps, but perhaps not. But we do know these are our circumstances, and we must look to see where God is working so we can join Him in His work. Personally, I never really understood what it meant to hear God speak. I didn't feel like I had ever heard Him speak to me. It turns out He has always been speaking to me, seeking to have a relationship with me, but I didn't recognize it until I learned all of the ways that God uses to reach us: the Bible, prayer, circumstances, and other believers. They were no more than just coincidences. Now that I've learned this truth, then it's a matter of accepting God's invitation to join Him. And as Henry Blackaby said in the Experiencing God study, you can't stay where you are and go with God. Well, 2020 has provided a lot of opportunities for us to stay where we are, both literally and figuratively. But I feel like we've continued as a church to seek God through our circumstances and have grown closer to Him as the church He has set us to be.
Thank you, Keith.
I didn't write anything, so Tyler had asked me to share a word of testimony, and I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. First thing is I want to thank you guys for allowing me to have my counseling center here at Shady Crest. It's been an awesome experience, and I enjoy working alongside Tyler and Donald a lot. It's helped me a lot to grow in what I need to do, and but one of the things I was thinking of as Keith was talking is there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. Number one was I wanted to talk about the men's group. Tyler and I were talking a long time back in the year about doing the men's group, and I told him, I said, well, Tyler, I've been through that, and when I was at Sagemont, if you'd like, I'd be glad to help you. And it has been a great experience to be with the Shady Crest guys and going through the 33 series. This last series, we learned what it means to be an authentic man. And this next series, we're going to be dealing with our wounds. And I will actually be leading a good part of it, facilitating a good part of it. So that is an honor that Tyler has asked me to do. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that I had a conversation with Tyler back in the beginning of the year, and I told him, I said, Debbie and I have been at Houston's First for 11 years, and a good part of those years I was on staff as Associate Minister of Counseling. And at the end of 2018, I decided to leave Houston's First and strike out on my own, and that's where Judah Christian Counseling came into play and how I became officed here. But anyway, I was talking to Tyler earlier in the year, and I said, I've been on staff or been involved in most of the churches where I work, and I probably am not going to look at Shady Crest to be the church where I would join and become a part of their church family. And because, it's always been awkward to be a counselor in the church that you go to. Well, ironically, through COVID, Houston's First has been online, and then they went back, and, we started coming to church here. And we started worshiping with you guys, and so my wife and I have been talking about it, and I have to back up on what I said because I think there is a true family here, and you can see the love that everybody has for each other, and so I was telling Tyler earlier on this morning that we won't formally join the church today, but we probably will next week. God moves in mysterious ways, and what you think is your plan is not your plan. It's His plan, and whether it's awkward or not. I've been through that for 20 years of what I do, and so God takes care of that, and I'm okay with that. So and my wife is too. She knows that if I'm talking to someone and she doesn't know who they are, she just goes on and does her thing. So anyway, I just wanted to share those couple of things. We really are. We're going to start our men's group back up about the middle of January, and I've already been going through the lessons. They're really good. They're going to, I'm going to be honest with you, some of it's going to be tough, but we're tough, and we can get through it, and we can get through it together, just like we did with the Authentic Manhood series. Keith's part of it. Kirby, I don't know where Kirby's sitting there. There he is back there, always on the back row. Kirby's part of it. Tyler's part of it. I'm part of it. Anyone else that Jake's part of it. Anyone else that wants to be a part of it, please join us because it's a lot of good stuff. So,
thank you, Houston. All right. Anybody who wants to give a reflection on the year or a testimony about what God's done in their life?
Hello. I feel like I've been up talking to everyone like almost weekly at this point, but one thing I think I haven't mentioned in a while is Awana. And so this year with Awana has definitely been different, and we didn't get to finish last year because of COVID, of course. And so when we were talking about what this year would look like and if we should start the program again, I talked to Jake, and Tyler and I talked, and we decided to go ahead and do it not knowing at all what to expect. I thought we'd either have a ton of kids because all the kids were driving the parents crazy, or we'd have hardly no kids because people were choosing to stay home. And it ended up being the first. We had a lot of kids. Every Wednesday night this year so far, we've had over 40 kids in Awana. And one thing that has really taught me is that parents were able to see the importance of what we do at Awana and the importance of keeping their children in church and learning about God. And they were able to set their fears aside and still be able to bring their kids so that we can teach them and help them to grow. And another thing I've really been taught is that I'm really a planner. I like to organize, I like to plan, and I get a little freaked out, I guess, when things don't exactly go the way I expect. And a big part of that thing is volunteers. We have so many kids, and having enough volunteers to handle all those kids. And Jake tells me all the time, to just calm down. We always figure it out and it'll be fine. And he's right. It always is fine. The minute that I think we're going to have way too many kids and not be able to handle it, I have someone come up and say, hey, I'd like to help with Awana. And so that's just really taught me that I just need to calm down a little, and that if God wants something to be successful, it will be. And I just have to trust in that, because we have, the last week of Awana, actually, we had 7 volunteers out. And Tyler wasn't there, and Janet wasn't there, and it was basically just us. So, but we made it work, and I called in some reinforcements, and people dropped everything and came up, and we worked it out, even with 7 volunteers being gone. And we always do seem to manage, and I really just think that's because God does want this to be successful, and he wants this program to grow, and it really has just been growing the last few years. So I guess I've just been really blessed with that. I have some great volunteers and some people like Crystal Hannigan, wherever she is, who said that she would help sub when people could not make it on Wednesday nights, and has worked every single Wednesday night since the first of the year. So, but she's never told me no, and my volunteers are always there when I need them, so I'm very appreciative for them.
If y'all don't know this, we are not a program-driven church. We have one program that we do, and that is Awana, and that's because we believe in it, and we believe it makes disciples out of kids, and a lot of that's due to Jamie's hard work, and really she makes things so easy on our volunteers from her preparation, and you know, the fact that we got to add her on staff is something that, you know, that has been huge for us. I mean, really just a blessing, especially with all that's going on in December. I felt December's always the busiest month of the year. And is this my first Sunday here? I don't know. I had COVID, and my wife had, was busy. But anyway, Jamie has really been a blessing and a great addition for the church, and really for you guys too, even if you don't directly see it. What else?
How y'all doing? My name's Zeke. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. And I'd have smoked a cell door if I could have lit one of them. There's a few of y'all in here that know what I'm talking about. All of a sudden, God called me, of all people, to do prison work and to do radio work in prison. And I tried to quit and tried to quit and tried to quit. And all of a sudden, I got a message from God. And that's what a bunch of y'all are receiving today. You've already received it. But a guy wrote a letter, and he said, thank God for y'all being on a radio show, that y'all are my family. You all I got. He said, I know that. He said, because I just got through flushing the razor blade I was going to kill myself with down the toilet. And when God calls you, get up off your bottom and go to work.
Amen. Who else? Melissa, were you getting up to say something? No? I really thought you were.
I'm not a speaker. I don't prepare, but here it is.
It's entertaining for everybody else, though.
Yeah. Okay, so in a nutshell, 2020 has stank. You know, COVID was okay, honestly, because I had just stocked up on toilet paper before it hit, and we had plenty. And I like to stay home and not socialize that much, so it's perfect for me. And I actually went on spring break at work and came back from a cruise, and then I didn't have to work again until the next September. So I was like, yay, COVID. But, and I've been fortunate that my only brush with COVID was our dear pastor. But anyway, that's fine. What was hard this year, since August, I've lost my sister unexpectedly, a close friend unexpectedly, and my stepmother, who we kind of expected, all in like 3 months. Those two were like 2 days apart, my close friend and my stepmother. And I'd never experienced loss like that. I mean, my grandparents had passed away, but they had long battles, and it was expected. But just getting that call that, my sister, really shook me, and I didn't know. But I came through it because I actually have a relationship with God now that I didn't have before. I had my Bible to turn to, and others in the church to lean on. I, bug Tyler a lot, but so I was able to get through it, and I'm like, it's okay. They're all in a better place. They're where I want to be one day. So I'm not sorry for them. I'm sorry for me. But without that, and without this church, and without God, I don't think I'd be standing here right now. So.
Sean?
All right, so this is completely unprepared, so I apologize if I stammer and ramble, but I did want to just thank this church family for all the support that you guys have shown us through this little cancer thing. It's really been amazing. I can't begin to thank you enough for the meal train, but most importantly, the prayer. So just to kind of show how God works. So I think maybe you guys don't, but before the Rona hit, I was traveling to Asia quite a bit. I was out of town, traveling over to Thailand once about every 5 weeks. The Rona hit, so that stopped, so got to spend some time at home. But I also moved to Beaumont, which is where my project is located. So I'm living in Beaumont, working on this project. Amy and I, our family, we love each other, but you get complacent and you kind of go through the motions, right? It gets easy to get absorbed in yourself and your work. And then May came around and my project got canceled, and which was, unexpected and not, not what I wanted, not my plan. But it put me back in Houston by the end of September. So I'm out of Houston. And then I guess it was early October, Amy said, hey, I've got this tightness in my belly. I think I'm going to go to the doctor. So she went to the doctor, and then 20 days later, she had a full hysterectomy. Was diagnosed with stage 3C cancer. Sorry, it's kind of difficult. But the good news is we have our faith, we have our church family. God put us in this church for a reason. And I look at all the blessings that led to this. I could have been in Beaumont. I could have been in Thailand. Instead, I was right here. Because of the COVID, we can all work from home. We have, our employers trust us now to work from home. So whether I'm sitting in a doctor's office or an IV lab, I can be present with my wife and still be present at work. Because my project got canceled, I'm in Houston. All of those things. And just as an update, so there's a blood marker. I've told some of you this, but there's a blood marker for ovarian cancer called CA-125. And the normal level for CA-125 is traced to 35. I don't know what the units of measurement are, but traced to 35. So before Amy's surgery, hers was over 2,000. After her surgery, it was in the high 80s. After her first chemo treatment, it was down to 24, with a target of getting it down to 10. So when Amy went in for a second chemo and we got that blood work back, all the chemo ladies, I call them chemo ladies, were just ecstatic that she was responding so well. So if you don't believe in the power of prayer, that is exactly what this is. So she continues to recover, and this has really brought us a lot closer together as a family. And like I said, I just can't thank this church enough.
And also Emery's prayer request, right? It was the saddest thing I've ever seen up on the wall. I want to see my daddy more. Sean was in Thailand every couple months. That prayer got answered too. Emery's been seeing a lot more of you. All right, what else? We don't. No one guessed a song was coming, Bryant.
You know, I started thinking about this morning and thinking about all the things that have happened in 2020. And I mean, it's really phenomenal. And I used to say something that said, this is too painful. I tell God, this is too painful and too miserable. Let me learn every lesson that you have for me. I don't want to go through this again. And I think 2020 is a lesson year. You know, between the storms, the election, the racial stuff, the COVID, I mean, we just been through it. Loss of loved ones and stuff like that. That always happens. But this year's unique. A couple of observations that it just demonstrates that God's work and God's power is not prevented or deterred by anything that happens on this earth. You can't stop him. In fact, when it's the darkest, he's the brightest. And he calls on his church, you know, he said, we are the light of the world. And I think what Matt said and what some other folks said, that's what's the challenge is for us, is that we shine that light in those darkness. It's what was prophesied. We talked about it last week. Those living in darkness have seen a great light. And Christ in you, the hope of glory. And so I see that happening. And I think it's happening. I also celebrate the fact that this church is, in my opinion, and y'all know I've been around churches a little bit, is as healthy as any church I've ever been around, as unified as any church I've ever been around. There's certain things I have little, Debbie, and you've heard me, some of you heard me say this before, I have little indicators of what makes a church healthy. And the number one thing is noise. The noisier the church is when it's together, the better it is, the healthier it is. When a church is real quiet, watch out. Another thing is how much food you have left over after a fellowship. Now, that sounds really goofy, but it's something about there's something real about that dynamic, and we have almost as much now as we had when before we started. Not as much. We have enough to feed you again. In other words, so if you're really hungry, there's a microwave in there, and you can finish up again. But more than that, God is teaching us to love one another. You know, love your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. And I'd rather be in a dungeon with you than any place else, and where we can praise God and have fellowship with one another. This is all preparation for what's next. And so I look forward. I'm not going to say that 2021 is going to be without trouble, because, you know, the Bible says that every day's got enough trouble of its own. The thing is, how do we respond to that trouble? How do we do that? How do we face up to it? And it's by growing close to our Lord. And reflect back on how God has guided this church over the last few years, and how God has changed us. I'm different. You're different because of our relationship with each other and God's effect on us. I just want to tell you I love you guys. And Debbie and I can't think of a better place to be, a better people to be with, a better family to belong to than Shady Crest. One other thing, too, Houston said he's going to join the church. We thank you for that warning. And you do have a vote, people. Remember that.
Oh, I'm looking for something. Okay, here it is. All right. So those of you who don't know, Linda gave gave me and Lindsay this Christmas ornament, which I just love. I think it's funny. If you notice, there's 5 little heads on here: Tyler, Lindsay, Cooper, Case, Corbin, and then, she said she ordered this earlier in the year, so she had to put plus Caleb on the bottom. So first of all, our 2020 added with our contributing to the world's largest kindergarten class, 5 years from now. So that was unexpected, but certainly a blessing. And those of you who have asked or wondering, Lindsay is getting stronger every day, and her and baby are at home and doing really good. There is so much that has happened this year. We started the year thinking that 2020 was going to be this clean, perfect slate, right? We had so much stuff that we had put behind us. And I'm sure every pastor had their corny 2020 vision as, their theme of the year or whatever. And that's honestly the way we thought of it, and it looked nothing like we thought it would look. We had all these goals about discipleship and hospitality and all these different things, and God had different plans. And Don said it, 2020 was a year of preparation. And there was a guy, I forget his name, but he said about the gospel or sharing your life with other people that we're like a pot, and God puts a light inside of us. And the light that God puts in us can only be shared through cracks in the pot. And I don't know what your year has been like, but God has really broken me in some pretty severe ways. I had people that I loved, that I was angry with, that God really showed me things about myself that I didn't know were there still. And, I thought I was ready, and you're never ready, like Matt said. I thought I was ready to do the things that God called me to do, but he needed to break me more this year. And he did some of that, and some of that was very, very difficult, and still comes in waves and things I'm dealing with now. But God is faithful, and he uses those things. He uses stories like Sean and Amy's and all the different ones you've heard today. A lot of those things weren't fun or good, but God is good, and we are His ambassadors, and it's only. Everybody else is experiencing the same things that you are. But if you don't share what God's doing in you, how are they going to hear? And that what Paul said to Timothy, how are they going to hear if no one preaches? How are they going to hear if no one goes? But I just wanted to point out a few things. This right here is a notebook that will go down, and if I write my prayers, this is 2020. I can't wait to look back on this in 10 years and see all the different things, unbelievable things we went through as a church. But this year, believe it or not, we probably advanced the speed of things that we needed to do as a church by 2 or 3 years. Our discipleship groups that got started because we couldn't, Keith really leading us through experiencing God, prepared us to be ready to do the discipleship groups we've been doing in Sunday school. Our men's group happened a lot faster than it would have before. Some of our 3-person discipleship groups finishing up and preparing for another round. I mean, these were huge goals, things we said, okay, if these things are happening in 2 to 3 years, we're going to be happy with that. And yet, in the midst of a pandemic, in a time where you can't do this and you can't do that, look what God did. Many are the plans of man, but God does what He wants. And He can take us and do what He wants. And that's one big testimony that I see for the year. We had some people really step up and embrace leadership, like Daniel Glass helping us with all of our online stuff, and Jamie coming on staff, and Keith helping. And so many of you, I imagine, did things this year, where God did things in you this year that you weren't expecting. Am I right? Will you all give me one of these if you thought maybe that was the case? And a couple things I'll close with is that I hope you kind of got this too, that this year I realized that there were some things that I was putting my trust in that weren't God. And you know what God does with idols, with things that you put before him? He rips them out of your life. And, you know, it's more than peeling a Band-Aid off. Those things leave scar tissue and scars and are difficult. But it is important for us that he is Lord, that nothing comes before him. And for me personally, there were things that I guess were that way that I didn't know about. And they were good things. And God removed them so that I would be more useful to him. I wanted to close on just a note on Matt's sermon today. Just a little story. I've been praying every single day for my donut lady at Donuts Delight. Well, just about every day, but faithfully praying for her. I shared the gospel with her at the beginning of the year, and I basically got, yeah, that's nice. But I also listened to her story. She was a refugee from Cambodia, and I talked to her when I'd go in there and learn about her parents and her kids and her family and all these things. And she told me today, when you come in, I'm not going to be here for the next couple of weeks. I'm going on vacation. And this lady, she had somebody who was filling in for her. She said she's going to be here. And you know what she said to her fill-in? She said, he knows me. These other people that come in, I don't know, but he knows me. And if you want to share the gospel with somebody, the gospel is shared over the bridge of relationship. And if you don't know somebody, you're not going to be able to share the good news with them. And so I wanted to that's a huge praise for me, you know, because like Matt said, the preparation for evangelism and sharing the gospel is prayer. I've been praying every day for almost a year now for this lady. And, you know, that is the key. People must know you. Because if you know God and they know you, they will see God's Spirit within you. Does anybody else have anything else they want to share before we close? I know you're not hungry, so. Yeah. There's no exclamation point to the end of 2020. We're still in the pandemic. But God is still God. He's still at work. And more than ever, we should be ready because of what he's done so far this year, to trust, to follow, to obey, to live the life abundantly that he's promised us. I bet you're going to tell me. Say that again. Sweeter as the years go by. All right, well, y'all pray with me as we close, and Joe's going to do one more song for us.